Jöreget kívánok, hogy vagy? Start of another day. You know, I gotta say these last yesterday, if only yesterday, but yesterday I got a couple comments on some videos that really touched me. One was from somebody up in the Pennsylvania Amish country, and it was off of a they were commenting on a video that I did back in the autumn or the winter regarding the Christmas markets, and just shared some really sweet, wonderful thoughts with me regarding how much I'm assuming it's a she, how much she enjoys my videos. It's like giving fatherly advice or something something along those lines. And then there was another one from a lovely lady. At least she seems like a lovely lady. Forever His Bell is the is her YouTube name. Forever His Bell. What a wonderful screen name that is. I'd be curious to know who he and who is the his in her name. Forever His Bell. But anyway, not well. There is a lot on my mind today, but where to even begin? It's interesting how people come in and out of your life, and they often, isn't there a saying something that people come into your life for a season or a reason? Meaning that for a season is they're in and out, so to speak, and then people come into your life for a reason. And yesterday, two people came into my life, and time will tell whether they came in for a season or a reason. But regardless of which, the fact that I say regardless, every time I say that word regardless, it makes me think back to to my youth when when I had befriended this lawyer. I was in my mid 20s, and I was living hand to mouth at that point in time in my life. And I befriended this lawyer with rental property. He was a single father with a daughter, and he brought me into the house. He gave me it was a rather nice arrangement, to be quite honest with you. I lived in this big house up on the hill, and all I had to do was cook dinner 5 nights a week. That's all he wanted me to do, was cook dinner 5 nights a week. Just have dinner ready when he got home from the office for his daughter and myself. But he was always correcting my English. He was always correcting my English, and at first it drove me crazy living in that house with this gentleman that well, he wasn't a gentleman, but living in this house with this individual who was always correcting my English. And I used to always say irregardless. He used to always put the IR in front of it and say irregardless. And he would always tell me, he would always correct me to the fact that it's regardless. The other thing that he always taught me is never end a sentence in I think it's called a proposition. When you would say something like, "Where is my hat at?" "Where is my hat at?" And he would say, "It's behind the at." You never say, just say, "Where is my hat?" Not "Where is my hat at?" And anyway, but kind of deviated from the discussion of this couple that came into my life yesterday. And you never know, as I said, whether it's for a season or a reason. But anyway, we have a community website here in our area, kind of like a Facebook for neighborhoods. And somebody had made a post on this website about having a brother or something and his wife that wanted to rent next winter. That's what you get down here. You always get about this time of year. You get these snowbirds scrambling around. You know, they're scrambling around looking for their rental for next year. Everybody wants to find the rental for next year, and it's interesting because as a homeowner, if I want to rent my house, it's nice. Well, I can easily rent my house now, or I can rent my house next year. You know, about the time season begins in December. But anyway, so I had responded to this individual with my phone number to give to her brother, and lo and behold, I got a phone call yesterday or the day before from this couple, and they wanted to come by and look at my home to rent it for 3 months next year, January, February, and March. January, February, March, they want to rent my house. And these houses down here go for a premium. My house down here goes for over $4,000 a month to rent as a vacation rental. And you know, for that reason alone, I'm in definitely no hurry to sell, no hurry to sell my place. I could take a trip every year down to New Zealand or Australia or something like that, and have my home rented all the while. But anyway, so they came over, and they were in their I would guess them to be in their probably mid to late 60s, and just a from the moment they walked in, they were just such a delightful couple. Really, really a beautiful, beautiful couple. You could tell that they had been married for years, you know. And anyway, so we were walking through the house, and for whatever reason, we walked into my office, and there was this picture of my dad, the painting, I should say, the painting from Emmanuel that I got down in the Algarve in Portugal, and they made a comment on that, and I told them a little bit about the story about my dad, and and I asked them if I could share the video with them of the tribute to my dad, and there the three of us stood in the office watching the collage of videos that I had put together when my father passed away, set to some beautiful music. And been a little while since I watched that video, and it was wonderful to stand there and share my dad with them. And anyway, so we found our way back downstairs, and whereas I thought we were going to sit at the dining room table, and whereas I thought we were going to sit at the dining room table and kind of talk out the specifics of the arrangement for next winter, it turned into a fellowship, if you will. It turned into a it turned we started talking about God and our faith and the Bible and what have you. And it was just it was really a wonderful, wonderful conversation that we had. And a lot of the conversation, I think the conversation started with the book of James. Go figure, right? We started talking about the book of James, and and the Mary had asked me something. She said, well, because we were talking about, I was telling them that, you know, my friend said it's a hard read. It's a hard read, in that when you read the book of James, it's basically telling you how to live your life, as a you know, how to live your life. And Mary asked me, she said, well, she said, I'm curious, what part of it do you find the most challenging? What part of the book of James do you find the most challenging? And I said, I said, well, I said, I don't think it's necessarily taming the tongue. I don't think taming the tongue is necessarily the hardest part for me. I don't necessarily have a too difficult of a time with my tongue. And and then I gave it a little bit further thought, and I said, I said probably the thing that challenges me the most of the book of James is the whole concept of faith without deeds. Faith without deeds. And I find myself I told her that I find myself being somewhat challenged because I feel that I have faith. I know that I have faith, but I wonder if I am without deeds in the context of the Bible. And that's probably the thing that challenges me the most. And Mary went on to elaborate her thoughts on what constitutes deeds. Deeds can mean deeds can fall under many different classifications as far as deeds. But anyway, the challenging that was the most challenging thing for me out of the out of the book of James that had that I had to give it some thought. But anyway, as the time we spent together continued, I had the opportunity. I guess I have not fellowshiped that much with Christians. I will admit, I don't actively go to church, and I don't go to Bible studies and what have you. But when Christians fellowship together, oftentimes they will tell their story. They would tell their story of how they came to find Christ, and I think it's called a testament or something like that. But I was sharing with Mary and her husband my story of how I came to find Christ, and it was interesting for me to tell that, and I probably told that on my morning videos before, but I was basically, long story short, I was about 29 years old, and I was waiting for test results. I was waiting for test results, and I had to wait the better part of a week or a week and a half to get these test results back. And and boy, when you're facing your maker, when you're in that position where it's you're when you're facing your maker, you life stops as you know it. Everything in life, nothing matters. Nothing at all matters when you're put into a position, where you may be leaving this earth a little bit sooner than you want to. And I felt myself in such a situation when I was about 29. And boy, the day I was going to get those test results, I went out to the Pacific Ocean to a place called Goat Rock. You can Google it. Just Google Goat Rock Jenner, Jenner. Just Google Goat Rock Jenner. But I went out to Goat Rock, and I stood there that morning that I was going to find out the results of my test. And I just opened my arms out, just opened up my arms, and I said, Lord, come into my life, make me an instrument of your peace, and put me on the path of righteousness that will lead me to your open and loving arms. And all the while, tears were coming down my face and what have you. But that was my born again. That was my born again moment. And nothing, you would expect the ground to rattle and the earth, the sky to open and all that, but nothing like that happened at all. nothing like that at all happened. But as I got in my car and I left the beach, and I went on my way, and got the test result. They came back negative. Thank the Lord. Um, then my life slowly evolved, and it did a 180. My life did a complete 180 from where it had been to where it is now. But anyway, but it was fun telling that story. And then the other thing that I was telling them, or telling Mary, was the story that I left my home at the age of 17. I left my home at the age of 17, and I walked down the driveway, and as I had done thousands of times growing up as a little kid, I got to the end of the driveway that time, the time that I left my home at 17. I got to the end of the driveway, and I turned and looked up the street. And whereas oftentimes I would see the end of the street and the boulevard and the cars going by, I saw the world. I, I saw the world at the end of that street, and it scared the crap out of me. It really did. It scared the crap out of me. I was 17 years old, and there was the world in front of me, and 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 it was interesting because Mary had asked me uh, at that time, or Mary made the observation that I was very lucky. I was very, very fortunate, because a lot of young people in that situation that find themselves out, facing the world at such an early age in their life, end up in all the wrong places, mm, with all the wrong people, and that I was very, very, very fortunate. And she went on to say, or correlate that with the book of James and the trials, the trials that you face in your life, the trials, the trials that you face in your life. And I told her that as I look back, on my life, the only thing that kept me from the only thing that got me to where I'm at this point in time in my life, considering the circumstances when I left home, was nothing short of the grace of God. It was nothing short of the grace of God that has gotten me to where I'm at. And it's I am learning more and more about the concept, or the whole idea behind the grace of God. And it correlates with Joel Osteen's constant discussion of the favor of God, the grace of God. That God gives that God gives it to people that are undeserving, undeserving. He gives it to sinners, if you will. And anyway, but I was telling Mary that the interesting thing about my life was that we were talking about, I forget, we were talking something about solitude or something like that. And I told her that from the earliest age in my life, when I was very little, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, growing up, I was always picked on as a child. I was always picked on and ridiculed and made fun of. And whenever there was like a pickup game, for baseball or something like that, I was always jokingly the last person to be picked. They would always pick. They would even pick a girl before they'd pick me. Just just to make me feel bad. But I was telling Mary that I spent a lot of time alone, and it was during that time, during that solitude as a child, that unbeknownst to myself, I was nurturing my relationship with Christ. I elaborated to her that that Christ or Jesus was in essence my imaginary friend. As I was growing up as a little kid, wondering why nobody would play with me, Jesus was my imaginary friend. And I used to, I used to talk, I used to talk to Jesus as a child would talk to any imaginary little friend. Mm. And I look back at that period of time in my life, and I realize the significance. I realize the significance that developing or nurturing that quote unquote imaginary friendship had on the course of my life. But anyway, and the other interesting aspect of our conversation evolved around the concept of rich men. The constant reference in the Bible to rich individuals that are wealthy, individuals that are rich. And Mary taught me something yesterday that really put a lot into perspective for me. I'm oftentimes quoting one of my favorite quotes, which is, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of the needle, than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Easier for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And you try to visualize that. You try to visualize the eye of a needle and a camel, and you think, well, it's impossible for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. So what the Bible is saying, that it's impossible for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And that's what often people think, that there's some hypocrisy between, people that are wealthy and people that are religious, because you can't be, according to the Bible, you can't be wealthy and be religious. And what Mary taught me yesterday was if you Google eye of the needle and go to Wikipedia or something like that, the eye of a needle was this place in Jerusalem, I believe, that was a very narrow passage in a wall. It was a very, very narrow passage. I think men had to bend down, to go through this little passageway, and camels, when they would come in, you had to take all their stuff off of them, the saddle, if you will, or the bags and everything. You had to take that all off of the camel, and they had to get down and go through the passageway. And my takeaway on that, if that's the context that is used throughout the Bible, then it doesn't mean that it's impossible for a rich man to get into heaven. It just means it's a little bit more difficult. And Mary asked me, why do I think that is? Why do I think it is that it's more difficult for rich men to get into the kingdom of heaven than it is, than it is for the poor and needy? And I told her, I said, it's been my observation over the years that as I've befriended wealthy people, oftentimes these wealthy people feel empowered by their youth or by their wealth. They feel empowered by their wealth. They feel they don't need, with their money they can buy everything. And oftentimes it's the wealthy people that lose or don't have humility, and they don't feel the need for God in their life. And that was my whole take on that. But anyway, so the countenance of the soul. The countenance of the soul. The word countenance is, as I understand it, well, let's ask Alexa. Alexa, define countenance.
I just added a reminder for cabinets to your Amazon cart, where you can choose something before
Alexa,
checkout,
stop.
including
Cabinets. Alexa, define countenance.
As a noun, countenance is usually defined as appearance, especially the look or expression of the face. As a verb, countenance is usually defined
Appearance, the look or expression of the face. So, countenance of the soul. One of my favorite quotes is the eyes. The eyes are the countenance of the soul. The eyes are the face of the soul. And yesterday, as I was talking to Mary and to, I think his name was Rob. Rob, I want to say Rob. Rob or Rod, one of those. It began with an R. He just retired a week ago as a judge. He was a juvenile judge and a divorce judge, and he just seemed like such a gentle guy. I can't. Well, I could imagine him sitting in a row behind a bench, but all the while that we were talking yesterday, when I would look at him, our eyes would fixate on each other's. You know, some people when you talk to them, they have better contact than others. You know, there are times when you have a conversation with somebody, and your eyes just fix. You know, you could be talking to them for, you know, a period of time, and all the while your eyes are just fixed. And that was the situation yesterday as I was conversing with this couple. Every time I was talking to or being spoken to by Rod, you know, the eye contact, it was just unreal. And all the while I kept thinking to myself, you know, that there's a beautiful soul. There was a beautiful soul within him, and you could see that through the eyes. And it reminded me of that saying, the eyes are the countenance of the soul. And anyway, so that was the other thought. And there was one other thought as I was lying in my bed getting ready for today's show, and that was, you know, I don't know that there's young people out there that watch my video, but there was some advice that I was going to give. If there's anybody out there that's younger watching my video, and even not necessarily younger, but one of the mistakes I think that a lot of people make in their youth is to have the mindset that they have lots of time ahead of them. You know, I have lots of time to you know, to achieve this, or I have lots of time to achieve that, or to do this, or get that done, or something like that. You have this mindset as you're younger, and you know, my advice to you would be that you know, life goes quickly, life goes by so fast, and you know, here I'm standing at the age of 56. And I can turn around in my mind, I can close my eyes and turn around, and it seems like yesterday I was 40 or 30 or 25 or something like that. Life goes by that quick, and don't ever put yourself in that mindset, you know, that you've got time. You know, time is precious. Use it use it wisely. But anyway, so that's about it for today. And we'll do the question of the day. Alexa, what's the question of the day? Alexa, what's the question of the day?
Here's today's question of the day. The topic is literature.
Literature.
It is worth 8 points.
Uh-oh.
The 2008 film Slumdog Millionaire is loosely adapted from which 2005 novel by Indian author and diplomat Vikas Swarup? You can choose from A, Q&A, B, The Life of Pi, C, Untouchable, or D, The Inheritance of Loss.
A.
You have 2 correct answers in a row. You have earned your first literature badge and 8 points.
I guess.
Set in India, the novel Q&A tells the rags to riches story of Ram Muhammad Thomas.
I guess that again. Anyway, folks, have a great day. I got to get on with my day. I'm not going to do the well, hell, I'll do the what would a day be without a high hope? Join your head to your heart. Aim to align your values and your actions. Happiness lies there. Interweave your heart and your mind. Consider it a work in progress. Don't look for perfection. Instead, concentrate on the effort. And the quote is, one ought to hold on to one's heart, for if one lets it go, one soon loses control of the head too. So there you go, folks.